All right. So resuming back, so what I was saying is that among all the other impacts of the crisis, we also have seen that the entire consumer activities, all the significant consumer activities have completely stopped. So it actually sounds like a doomsday scenario, but I would like to differ on that opinion. A lot of people have that opinion, but I would like to differ and kind of try to encourage ourselves by saying that if we look at the recent past of the last couple of decades, we have seen the great financial crisis, we've seen the dot-com bust, we've seen the effects of wars, and each time the human race has shown a huge resilience and come back each time to weather those crises and come back on track to resume life, to resume rebuild our economies. And I'm absolutely sure that this time also we will weather the COVID-19 crisis and we will come back stronger. The world will become stronger. Before the start of the webinar, I would like to lift all of our spirits by showing you this diagram. It's a world economic activity with a blip shown in the middle, which is referring to the great financial crisis during the 2008 and 2009s. And if you actually notice carefully, the economy has come back stronger than ever. And if you draw a straight line from the beginning point to the to follow the upward curves post the GFC, it actually looks like, if you just negate that, if you just discount that blip, it actually looks like nothing has ever happened. So I'm absolutely sure that we will come back stronger as an economy, as in the world, as well as in India. If we talk about India, we have weathered the GFC crisis far better than a lot of other countries, including a lot of developed countries. Even in the COVID-19 situation this time, India has attracted the attention of the world by its actions that we have proactively taken towards the beginning, right towards the beginning, to keep the infection levels much below than, I would say, to control it much better than the entire developed world. And we are already seeing activities and sentiments coming out throughout the world in the sense that a lot of countries would actually look towards India to partner with Indian businesses post COVID-19 situation. So I'm sure our country will emerge as a much stronger country, as a much stronger economy in the post COVID-19 scenario. Now, we keep on hearing about all the negative news every day, but I would like to start this webinar with some positive news as well. This 3 points, COVID coming out to be a great leveler in the society. We have seen in the last couple of months that the society has become very, very sensitive, very, very empathetic towards perceivably downtrodden amongst us. And we have realized the great position, the great role that they play in holding the society together in the times of this kind of crisis that we are facing at this moment. So which is a very heartening development, and I'm very, very hopeful that this is going to get embedded in the society and will remain embedded in the future generation as well. The green effect of COVID, I will refer to the diagrams below. That's a comparison of the nitrogen dioxide levels, essentially pollution levels, on top of France and some parts of Germany, pre-COVID and during the COVID crisis. Now, we know that COVID has a disastrous effect on the human lung, but as a result of the reduction of the pollutions over all the countries, I'm absolutely sure that it has actually given a lifeline to a lot of people who are seriously, severely ill with lung diseases. And that number actually can outweigh, we don't know any statistics about that, but that number can actually outweigh the number of affected people due to the COVID crisis. We also have this very positive aspect about family times. As a result of the lockdowns all over the globe, we have got millions and millions of happy families, happy parents, happy children, happy couples. And I'm absolutely sure that post-COVID, we will keep on cherishing these moments we are having at this moment, right? So these are some of the positive aspects of COVID that I wanted to kind of touch upon to kind of give it a positive start rather than giving a negative picture of COVID. Coming back to our webinar of today, we wanted to look at remote working as a changing work paradigm or a changing work pattern that is emerging. So work from home or remote working was present among the white collar industry, more so in the IT industry or IT enabled services industry. But at this moment, it is taking out of necessity. Most of the or all of the white collar employees of most corporations have gone. I mean, are operating remotely or operating from home. Uh, the reason we wanted to touch upon this and kind of dig deeper into it through today's webinar is because due, due to this paradigm, we are also looking at a trend for the future, and we wanted to look at the various nuances, the various aspects of this new pattern, and actually look at how it will shape up for the future and how it is going to benefit us in the future. Should we go into this, I mean, sustain this remote working patterns for the future, and how does it benefit us? Right, so we wanted to look at three different aspects of this new pattern. One is the HR pattern. So we have Pranab Chetia, Director HR Asia Pacific for Volvo Group Trucks Operations. He is based out of Singapore and dialed in from Singapore. So welcome, Pranab. We also have Ajay Bakshi amongst us. He's the Global Transformation Leader at Xerox Shared Services. Ajay is also a very well celebrated CIO level exec in the industry. Is a recipient of Economic Times CIO Award for 2018 and is also one of the founding members of the CIO Club. So Ajay will be focusing on the technology response of related to the COVID crisis in relation to the remote working pattern that is emerging. Gauri Shankar is also here with us. Gauri Shankar is the head of Maersk Accelerator for the cohorts in India and China. Gauri Shankar is an innovation expert. So from Gauri Shankar, we will listen from him about how innovation is continuing in the organization, especially the startup angles, challenges, nuances, etc. Missed one point to mention about the aspect we want to hear from Pranab. We would like to see the aspects about workforce motivation, human capital management, that is workforce productivity, development, etc. And from the HR perspective, what the organization should do in relation to this changing work paradigm of working from home. So that is basically what is expected out of today's webinar, the structure of it. We will start with Ajay, and I would request Rupa or Prithvi to give out the presenter access to Ajay. Welcome, Ajay, and over to you.
I have made him the presenter.
We can't hear anything.
Yeah, I see Ajay on the webcam. He's there. Ajay,
Yeah,
you
I
are on.
think mute maybe.
Yeah, so he has shared his presentation. Ajay, hi. Are you facing any trouble with your sound? Because we can't hear you. You can actually send a chat message to me if there is any issue.
I think it seems to be an issue with Ajay's audio rather than him being on mute, because against his name we see that there's no audio.
Yeah, so he has just messaged that audio is on, but we can't hear him.
He could probably go to settings and select the right audio for himself. I was facing the same issue in the initial stages of this meeting. So rather than selecting
Okay.
the speaker on the laptop or the desktop, he might have to select the headphone that he's using.
Yeah,
Just
so
as a
I just sort out the issue. Um, so we will move over to another speaker. So Gauri, if you are ready, if you can take on.
Yeah, we can go ahead, Manas, no problem. I'll pick it up.
Yeah, so Rupa, if you can make Gauri the presenter.
I have made him the presenter.
Guys, let me know if you're able to see the screen.
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Thanks, Manas. So that's exactly a crisis. So unfortunately, we couldn't have Ajay to kickstart it.
Your
But
voice is
pretty
a
much
little
the scenario that we're all experiencing right
low.
now. Yeah, Manas. Are you
Yeah,
able to
your
hear me
voice is
any
a little
better, guys? Any
slightly
better now?
better. Yes,
Okay.
slightly better.
I'll try to speak up. I'll try to speak up. Yeah. Okay. Good evening, everyone. And I'm here to cover specifically around the topic of innovation with the remote workforce. Um, as just how Ajay has crossed this, mile of having a challenge with the remote, functioning of any such technology keeps challenging us, and I'm sure most of you are going through this right now. Um, but specifically to this session, we are trying to address at least 2 points. One is around can innovation really happen at this moment during a distress, during a crisis? That is one. And second is, can innovation happen with a remote workforce? Because traditionally we've been trained to mentally think that we are all effective when we are put together in a room. Even to brainstorm, we want to come together in a single room. And all of a sudden, there's a change in definition that we are supposed to stay in our own zones and operate with innovative, ideologies to keep up with the business changes. So let me quickly run into this presentation. Can everyone else go on mute as well, please? Thank you. Because my voice is already low and there's a lot of background noise. I'm trying to adjust it. So if everyone can go on mute, that'll be amazing. Okay. So coming back to the fact that can we really innovate during a crisis? For a fact, yes. And there's a whole lot of examples to it. I'm sure multiple times you guys would have heard about the fact that people have quoted World War II as a reference for a number of technology changes that we enjoy today, starting from radar to microwave ovens, small to big, and a numerous number of innovations happened during a major crisis that happened in our century. And it is no different in our current situation today. There is still a strong crisis that hits us, and that does still motivate us to innovate fast. I'm sure you must have been following the media for the number of innovations that you see, but let's kind of take a look at a one-page snapshot of things that you would have seen in the media, right? These are some items that you'd have heard about, real quick. Um, the app that the Indian government has come up with, there's about 70 million users right now in no time. A conversion of railway coaches for an isolation ward. Ventilators, the first thing to make it to the news. A number of companies came up with ventilators and face masks that can support the medical emergencies right now. And all of these, I hear, okay, people recommending that if the video camera is off, maybe the quality can improve. I'll try to do that. Please let me know if that improves the audio quality. But if everyone can go on mute, that will be really helpful. Okay, great. So given the fact that ventilators was the first stride of innovation that you'd have seen for the pandemic, for the crisis itself, a number of people who were doing this work were sitting at their own homes. They were all remote workers, and they were still able to pull this off. If you see, there were also very simple innovations that happened during this time. What you're seeing is a hygiene hook, the one that is in the center of the slide. It's a very simple innovation which allows you to limit the number of touch points that you create to a regular day by just carrying it in your pocket. All these innovations happened just because of the fact that there was a crisis that forced us to push towards that direction. All these are innovations of some quality and purpose. People are still not on mute, but I'll try to talk over them, right? But these are other than the
Can the
ones that you
can
saw.
the administrator not mute everybody apart from the person who's speaking?
I am not sure if that is possible, but Rupa, is there a feasibility to do that?
The region option, it can be.
Yes, so Rupa is trying to
Yeah.
do that time and again.
I figure that because there's people joining in as well as we speak. So I understand the challenge as well, Manas. But is it okay if we continue or we pause?
Yes, please. Yes, please.
Okay, fair enough. So given the fact that other than the ones that you see in the media, a number of corporates are facing some need to sustain the business by innovating in these areas, right? All of a sudden, we are all forced to adapt into cloud solutions. And I'm sure Ajay has a detailed overview on the technology dimension of this. Um, and all of a sudden, you have to deal with your customers 100% virtually. If there are sales colleagues on this call, you would understand and you would know how it changes the whole perspective of dealing a sales lead or a sales closure, having to meet your customers only on the phone. I'm sure there's a number of sales calls that gets completed over a face-to-face meetings, and all of that is just dropped. Um, Need for IT resilience. How often have you had downtimes in the past on a regular business? Unlike in today's scenario, a downtime is a complete stop of business. You can't have a system to go down. You can't have your internet to go down on a regular day. That makes it even more challenging for the IT teams to fight through this crisis. People who have been through this might acknowledge it better, but there's a whole lot of challenge in terms of the cyber crisis that we could enter into. At least I could talk for the industry from the logistics industry. One of the biggest players was recently hit by a cyber attack, and yet another IT brand also went through a cyber attack because we just opened doors for remote working, which also means a whole lot of threat in the cyber attack crisis, right? Um, and in terms of the supply chain itself, one of the crucial needs at this moment, managing our essentials, there's extensive need for us to manage the supply chain more effectively, cost-wise, and also operationally efficient. And the last aspect is largely around the empowerment of your remote employees. All of a sudden, there are people who needs to work out of their own locations, and not everyone is completely equipped for it. If you are running a large shared service organization, you would understand the number of people who don't use a laptop. There is a need for desktop to be moved to their final locations. People do not have a permanent or a structured internet connectivity. efforts were to be managed, and teams which managed these efforts during that time was not able to do it with just simple interventions. They had to work through very different cycles. I'm sure you must have heard about your teams which picked up Zoom as an option to interact, and all of a sudden there was also some warnings about the tool itself. But yet, a number of people quickly jumped onto that tool. The number of downloads of Zoom in Android and iOS skyrocketed during that time. And all of that to sustain business in as is shape. This was not to change or build new products, but all of that to sustain in as is shape. But how was this possible when there is a crisis in play? Because the first thing to to come into attention is business as usual. But given the fact that business as usual needs to be managed only if you can think innovative, came to be a new challenge for us to address. Why is that happening? Why do we have a crisis driving us to be more innovative in every scenario? That is the answer on this slide, right? Um, Crisis generally beats innovation because even as a innate human behavior, we all tend to be super creative when there is a challenge for us to deal with. The biggest innovations are generally accidental when we are trying to deal with a crisis. One of the important reasons is we unite around a purpose. There is a reason for us to come together, and we try and stick together until that crisis is solved. We see the system very differently when there is a crisis because we always want to hack around it, find smarter solutions and faster solutions. And whenever there is limitation of resources, and I'm sure many of you can empathize with this, when there is a limitation of resources, your brain is a lot more creative. And that's exactly what is driving us to be a lot more innovative during these times. Hierarchy and a series of emails for approvals changes during this kind of situation. There's a clear bias for action, and the organizations which are frozen by this hierarchical nature are fairly, unfrozen during these crisis times. As Musk as an organization, I have a very personal example to quote. About 2 years back, we went through a cyber attack where none of our technology worked. We only had our people to support us. And it was one of the biggest attacks probably of the decade. And our business came to a standstill for roughly about 30 days. And everything that drove us in that 30 days was just about the fact that we were able to think on our shoes, and we were given full empowerment as a team to operate during those hours. And it changed our technology landscape significantly right after that crisis was won over. But now, yet another wave where we have everything to do with our technology completely working fine, but we don't have any of our people in the office. And we are taking technology to the doors of the customer and the employees at the same time to keep the ball rolling. It's also one of the businesses where we can't say that we operate 100% remotely. A logistics and shipping business does need people to operate from the ground. It's partly physical with a lot of care and attention, and also a lot of digital work that takes over in the remote space. Just as an example, just the shared service center alone has about 12,000 people, and Maersk as an organization have about 100,000 people. We have roughly around 70% of our employees right now operating remotely. And that's not a easy change for any large corporate to deal with. And I'm sure there's a number of people who are representing different corporates at this moment. Why is this being feasible and structured even in
Voice
spite
is
of all
staying.
these challenges? Sorry, was there a comment, Rupa?
No, please carry on.
Okay, cool. So some more pointers to add as an example is that we kickstarted our China cohort when we operated our accelerator program for India. We decided to kickstart it in China. Sometime in October, November, we started our groundwork, and then the pandemic hit us. Right in the middle of the crisis, we launched our first acceleration program initiatives in China, operating out of Shenzhen. Two of my team members were sitting out there, and the hindrance because of the pandemic was bare minimum because of the fact that startups were really biased for action. What you're seeing here are things that already exist in the startup, and in the corporate world where we are trying to adapt, these are some certain things that already exist in the startup. There's a number of people who don't have a frozen organization. They already have a strong bias for action, and the need for them to think differently is more of their survival game. They don't do that just when there is a crisis, when they do it all the time. And that becomes a bigger lesson for us as corporates to incorporate. When we pass through this crisis, how do we sustain this momentum? Can we keep this rolling even after things come back to normal? Uh, Now, let me pause here and try to answer the second question we had as we kickstarted this session, which is, can we really do this with a remote workforce? How does it even become possible for us to sustain the momentum of innovation with a remote workforce? Um, Try to imagine yourself being on a workshop in good olden days where we had the freedom of moving to places. Imagine that you had to go to a workshop. Things that we did, we went outside of office to a place other than work. We spent time in freedom. We don't spend working hours of 8 hours scheduled, but we spend time in freedom. Uh, we broke out ourselves into smaller teams, which is called, team working or silo working, where we take smaller pieces of action to work with. And then we also had the comfort of moving around in a place which is other than office. If you look at it right now, and with the amount of autonomy that you get in such workshop sessions, that's exactly what you do today in a work from home session. Uh, with just the freedom of words, I'm going to start calling people who are remote workers as telecommuters. There's a whole lot of logistics that goes behind, doing work from home. So, and remote generally quickly associates ourselves to the word control. Given the fact that we all sit at home today, that's our closest object. And so I would like to call them as telecommuters. These telecommuters has the biggest advantage that we just spoke of. Everything that you do on a creative environment, when you force creativity in an environment, these are things that you try to add into that mixture. You give them time flexibility, you move them out of the standard office location, you give them focused introversion sessions where you ask them to go out, think for yourself, and come back with an answer. You bring in people with a different sort of diversity. And given the fact that my team operates completely remote right now, I don't have to think about bringing teams together which sits only in that office. I can bring people from anywhere in the world to think together. There's a whole lot of tools that supports us today, and I'm sure people in the market are much more smarter than me. There's Slack, there is Miro, there's a whole lot of workspace tools which allows us to operate together as a team in a single whiteboard if we have to. There's organized chaos because we are trying to put people in a situation where they can think out loud and bring control by extracting output that is needed. And the last but not the least is the amount of ownership that sits within the people right now is much, much higher. I'm sure there are managers in this group who would have tried hard to keep their people on the seat for 8 hours in a day on a regular office hour and an office environment. But there are people who are spending much longer than that sitting in home without any monitoring, without any management support that is needed. How does it work? It's purely because of the amount of ownership that people carry in such situations. Sustaining this will definitely fuel innovation on a long run. And that's one of the reasons I believe that while this is not the most sweetest time to be in the space of innovation, but I believe this is optimal, and all the learnings that we generate today can be used for the future as well. With that, I would like to close my session, Manas.
Thank you, Gauri. That was wonderful. We are running a little bit out of time, so we will take one question. The first question, which has come in through the chat box, and we will see if we can take more questions, the second or the third, after everybody's sessions are over. So the first question that came in is, how can employees or every one of us be resilient and maintain the agile winning mindset under this lockdown period? Your insights.
Okay, so I could quote some personal references. Doesn't mean that this is the best answer as well. But in terms of keeping your agile mindsets during this crisis period is largely by staying result oriented rather than focusing on the measures around how we operate. And the last point that I discussed also adds a lot into it. The amount of autonomy and empowerment that you can give to your employees can keep the agile mindset going. If you try to build more hierarchy and monitoring controls even during this time, it's only going to make them make it difficult for these team members to operate and operate with agile mindset if there is a need. So that's at least my immediate piece of reference.
Thank you, Gauri, and thank you, Dr. Nandish Hiramat, who asked the question. So with that, it was wonderful, Gauri. Very good insights from you. And with that, we will move to Ajay. Ajay is back. Ajay, over to you.
Yes, I'm
Rupa,
back.
if you can. All right. So loud and clear this time. Thank you.
Wonderful. Okay, very good evening to each one of you. I can see around 100 odd people, which is a great sign. Friday evening, 6 to 7 p.m. Had it been a normal day, all of you would be at some other places, but just see the enthusiasm. I thank the BCIC, Manas, and the entire team, Rupa, Richa, to having this organized. And thank you, each one of you, for being here in the first place. So let's begin. People are thinking what happened. It always happens in conferences, something goes wrong. So that is what went wrong. And I have not yet started my video, just to be careful on the side that something may go wrong, but now I can actually make it a try. What went wrong last time was that the audio button was just rotating. Neither it is saying, say, unmute yourself, nor it is giving an on and off, say, button. So I had to log off, log in. And since we are talking technology, it is good that that example came, because I will be now referring it to it as well. My name is Ajay. As all of you would have known, I work with Xerox Shared Services. Xerox, as you all will know, is spread across 130 odd countries, and Shared Services is spread across now 15 odd countries. And it works with two types of model, some in-house and something on outsourced model. So both type of activities happen. So after clearing the safe harbor statement, let's come straight away to the topic. Key basics. We all know that technology is the fulcrum of everything, but this COVID situation, work from home situation, was a time when it became so handy that organizations which were not technology enabled to an extent, we all have been seeing that become digital now, that campaign, that thing, activity going on for last 7 to 8 years across organizations. Few organizations did it in a big scale, few organizations have done it in a small scale. And you can realize that the organizations which were technically ready are actually the organizations which are in the best situations to handle this crisis. Otherwise, what other situation it would have taken, we can't say imagine also, because how it might have ended up. So most of the companies got stuck into the sudden, say, announcements that there is a lockdown. And since we are spread across country, so many countries, we had situation in few countries where there was zero movement order and fire at site. The president of Philippines said no movement at all. People got stuck wherever they were. And we have to support, say, all 130 odd countries from there. So the immediate first thing is absolutely to whatever services you are running, whether from a technology angle or from a service angle, immediately had to be categorized into which is the most critical to do, what is normal, and what is can be done later. If that segmentation is not there, whatever resources you have, you will be further spreading out, you will be further thinning yourself into everything. Second challenge each one of us had was the security related issues. In a typical support environment, you will know in the office you have do's and don'ts and everything. Now, in case you handle all your technical challenges, but still the few open security areas completely go unnoticed because you cannot have a monitoring there. That is another thing to handle about. Next comes your alternatives. Sometimes organizations run their normal business so thin They are almost at 80% overloaded situation. Their servers are running, bandwidth is running, everything is running at that capacities, of course, in the name of efficiencies. But then suddenly when this type of situation comes, all you are looking for is alternatives to get everything done. And in a certain environment, you surely alone cannot manage this. Your partner ecosystem, your relationship with the partners become the number one thing which has to support you across geos, across things. So all said and done, at the end of it, for the technology teams, it comes down to your devices should be up, your connectivity should be up, your application should be up. If any one of it fails, any one of it has a flaw, you will find the whole system getting broken. And the collaboration tool, Gauri also mentioned, we cannot highlight the importance of collaboration tool as we have seen in the last 45 to 50 odd days, that how without that actually now living itself is an impossible for an office life. So what has happened technically? Your enterprise, which was inside the boundaries, maybe 5% people were outside the enterprise still using office apps. Now it is outside the wall. There is no more a wall. It is all everything out in the open. And the organization which is more ready will be able to bear it. If you are not, you get stuck. So obviously, like every other organizations, we also found a situation where all the BCP plans, majority of them are suited in such a way that one country can support other country to an extent that something goes wrong in one country, other country will manage it. But what do you do when a country completely goes down? And not only your country, but the supporting country also goes down, because most of the time you will set up your alternate center into the places which are also working. Immediate thing is to immediately set up a global command center. What it does, it streamlines entire chain. It's like a military type operation. Anything happening anywhere, the first point, the central command is the first one to know. Then you know what resources can be deployed where. They can be technical resources, they can be physical resources, they can be cloud resources, if you have to talk from a technology angle. Without a central authority of control, each and everything will be running helter and skelter, and you cannot do that. Then what happens in most of the time is that the decision making follows a certain path, and to a large extent, things happen as they happen. But during this time of 50 days of COVID, there had to be an immediate need to release those steps and the IT team, because IT has to make sure that the entire organization is active. Entire organization is geared up for everything. So have a few bypass to make sure that the decision making happens faster. Security becomes an important issue, and being in the environment we are, obviously where you cannot download something, you cannot do this, you cannot do that, the tools like Citrix and VPN become the first priority to do. Even if you do those, your entire office load will come onto the one place. You will not be able to go. Your entire servers may not be equipped. The only way you will look for your resources is to move on to cloud. Next thing is to move out your less resources to cloud and keep your intensive resources, which are user heavy and all those things where you have already invested on the security within your own premise or on cloud, just focus on that. Each one of you have a specialized team to look after your user layer, then coming to access layer, then handling the resource layer, and then the network layer. Each of these 4 layers have to be given equal importance to know that how it happens. And during the initial days where machines get stuck in office, few employees are at home, few are in office, obviously the rush is to work with the local government agencies across each and every country to get the passes, and then find ways and means to get things done. In terms of processes in the offices, a lot of things, of course, were happening. If they were happening, say 20%, 30%, 40% of the things in a digital way, in an electronic way, suddenly these 50 days have forced each and everything to be 100% get converted to this. Lot of issues related to your change management, user psychology, frankly, everything just vanished. Everybody has to be on the digital ways of working. And I'm pretty sure once the whole situation ends and organization come back in the normal way, many of the organizations will see that majority of these things have helped them, at least in, say, acclimatization of the whole digital route of office working. We had hundreds of bots running. We further put the teams to quickly work on the bots, because if people are not in office, there is somebody who is supposed to work. So some of the critical pieces went immediately to the bots to make sure that even if the person is not there, the people will be not missed in terms of missing out on some SLAs or certain activities that have to be done. And most important, keep your IT staff motivated, because they will be facing challenges which they have not faced. For example, so many people working from home, and your Wi-Fi, most of the people have a billing cycle. Sometimes it is scattered depending upon service provider you are. In a normal environment, you may not consume your entire bandwidth. But as we realize people are coming, technical problem, application not working, this not happening, that not happening, while you do troubleshooting, then at the end you realize, oh, the network is so slow at the client end, which means at the user end, wherever they are, that whatever you do at your network, things won't improve. So obviously employees have to be suggested that, okay, if you realize that you're running out of bandwidth, go up and do a recharge cap up. Simple thing, very simple thing. But then when it is not in the, say, knowledge of Relim or awareness at a straight way, people don't realize it. We also realized it after attending few problems, and then we had to make sure that everybody is aware. Second, majority of the people who are with certain telecom providers on a certain Wi-Fi router, which is power connected to their homes. If they are not on a mobile router, they might be working on something complex, your ERP system, your applications, and suddenly a disconnection, power supply not coming at home, everything goes out of a toss. Things come up, each and everything has to be rebooted and everything has to be done. That becomes a problem. So we quickly did internal, has to happen that how many are where, advise them, tell them what they should do, what they should not do. From a security angle, you can take care of security while in office. For many of the home users, we have to educate them to go back and check their home Wi-Fi router security settings. Whatever security layer comes by default is not surely good for your application access security, or when you really want to be careful about whatever you are doing. The configurations have to be shifted, and we help people to do that piece. And when you are working with your home laptop, then there is another problem of imaging of one system versus another system. In office, when you give your office devices, all are imaged on a standard imaging. But when people work from their home, obviously they come with their personal laptops, and those may not have the same configurations of security that you will look for. So that is another area to be very, very carefully checked for. So I think my time should be running to close. And this is my 7th conference webinar type in last 40-50 days. And I love the first 5 minutes where it looks like a school teacher is telling kids, just be quiet, just be quiet. And we are seeing it practically happening everywhere. So nothing to be worry about or go on that users are not keeping mute. It happens, and I will be very happy to see somewhere where everybody is quiet. Reminds of a KG class. Thanks for your time. Manas, I hand over to you.
Yeah, so we will take. Thank you, Ajay. That was great, and especially your last comment about the muting, unmuting. So we'll take one question, and then we move over to Pranab. We'll take the first question. See, what is the preparation needed for post-corona scenario? Will the scenario be the same in corporates?
Okay, if the question is from technology angle or it is from a generic office environment. If it is not there, I'll address both. Okay, try to address both. From a
Maybe
technology
you
environment.
maybe keep it generic.
Okay, I can. Fine. From a technology angle, the answer would be straightforward. These 40 days have been a huge learning for a lot of technology people across the globe, but more than that, it has been a much more learning and better learning for the users. How things work if a user say how user is
Sorry to interrupt.
in the
You're not audible.
office and
Sorry. Yeah.
environment company.
Ajay, you are not audible. It's breaking up badly. All right. Okay. So what we'll do is maybe he's facing the audio challenge again. So what we'll do is we'll move over to Pranab, and after that, if you have more time, we expectedly have some more time. We will take more questions for all three of them. So over to you, Pranab. Rupa, if you can make Pranab the presenter.
Hello, everybody. Thank you. I like to, of course, give my greetings to all of you. It's a good learning for me to be here. I have prepared a short presentation, and let me, try to share, and I will try to move forward. Just give me maybe 30 seconds, for me to put this up. Yeah. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Just give me a second. I'm also using this first time today. Let me quickly learn and take it forward. Do you see the full screen or just the half screen here, Manas?
If you come down a little bit, if you come down, bring your cursor down, even more. Yeah, here, this one.
Yeah, now we can see.
It's great. Now we can carry on.
Yeah, you can see the full screen, right?
Yeah, all good.
Okay, sorry. Okay, thank you so much once again, BCIC and all the participants. And of course, today's topic is a little challenging by itself. And my name is Pranab. I work for Volvo, joining you from Singapore. So let me, move forward with two important, I would say, learning or quote, and which I really, appreciate and respect. One is, of course, from Albert Einstein, and he says like this: you have to learn the rules of the game, and then you have to play better than anyone else. And of course, in the real world, we see also, as an example, Virat Kohli and the team going, to win the cricket match for India, and everybody really need to know the rule to win the match for all of us. And the second is the learning journey. And in fact, I think I see this within all of you today. Lovely evening on Friday during the lockdown, and you are all in a learning space. And I think this is very apt. It says that, of course, by Peter Drucker, who is one of the management guru, and he says that the knowledge worker, that is you and me, must effectively be their own chief executive officer. It's up to you and to me to carve out your place, to know when to change course, and to keep yourself engaged and productive during a work life that may span, some 50 years. It means that, I need to take charge of my life. You need to take charge of your, life. Of course, we get great support from family, friends, managers and the surrounding, but it is very important that we appreciate the learning as a constant element of life, and we move forward, with the spirit of, I would say, a growth mindset. So I will talk a little more on the growth mindset, and let me very, very quickly touch about the COVID. And I have seen some questions regarding post-COVID, and I think post-COVID, I see that the current situation would be a big motivation for Industry 4.0, because we have already seen that India was doing extremely well in terms of the robotic, in terms of the virtual platforms, in terms of entrepreneurship. We have a rich human capital as a country, and I think we are gearing ourselves towards going to a new Industry 4.0. But at the same time, of course, I think there are 4C which are very essential today, and I personally have learned from our Volvo Group CEO, and it talks about the colleague, customer, cash, and the cost. So let me elaborate a little more. The colleague, of course, today the health and well-being is the core part of our life, and of course we are caring in nature. Customer is the king, as we know. Cash, whoever has cash today, they are of course the king of the world today, and it is it is very, very important for the company to maintain the very good cash flow. Of course, we have a lot of losses in the balance sheet. Every company is finding challenges, and that's where the cost management come, how we can be more cost effective, not only by doing things but also in our mindset while taking a decision. And that comes with a lot of responsibility from the leadership angle, because I strongly believe that every individual has a great leadership quality. You have a great leadership quality, and it is the right time for us to align our life to some sort of business reasoning, or in terms of the society, or in terms of the economies. I think we need to be very alert to to see where we are today and how we are moving forward. We will see a lot of policy changes coming up, and one thing I want to say that it is the growth mindset which will help us to fly higher in near future. So I would say that yes, we have a challenge today, but we see a lot of opportunity, and of course I think India has a fantastic base today to pick up the new new norm which everybody talking about. I thought to bring a story to all of you, a real story to talk about employee engagement, to talk about motivation, and I call one of my friend, her name is Pooja, and here it is a story, a real story of a young female talent. She is the head of human capital management of a large Indian housing company headquartered in Mumbai, and of course she is a loving mother of 9-year-old boy, managing work-life balance with husband working from home. And I am sure in this call there are equally many Pooja. And it was very interesting when I spoke to her. Almost, I spoke to her 2 times, and let us see, how Pooja is engaged at work while also managing her 24/7, home life. So it's just a short story, 2 jobs of a working mother. What we see here is that today the home has become an office, and that's why the new working venue is a home office for you and for me. And the time management has become super important, because for us to be healthy, the morning exercise for Pooja is very important. She has to take care of the household work, she has to take care of the breakfast, she has to take care of the the kid she has. And of course, she has a flexi hour starting from 9 a.m. and it is going up to 9 p.m. And she is, of course, highly engaged. And during this engagement process, of course, she finds a lot of challenges. So what are some of these challenges? One, she is completely engaged from morning 9 o'clock to 9 p.m. because she is managing her team virtually, not only her own team. Also, being an HR person, she is supporting business leaders, and of course at home she has to take care of the child, which means that she is really engaged 24/7. On one side, it is a challenge, but at the same time, I must say that this is also a competence development, happening here. What are the winning points? How Pooja is maintaining her motivation. And one thing Pooja is happy that she is able to spend a lot of personal time with with her kid, and probably she said that she will probably not get this fantastic moment after COVID. So as a family being together is definitely an advantage, and Manas talked about as well. And of course, being successful in bringing company values and in the current situation. Two example. One is that she could able to speak to some individual who have resigned, and and she had a dialogue, and she could able to retain those employees. She could able to do virtual onboarding process. What a fantastic moment where an employee is joining a company sitting from home, and these are new experiences, and she is really proud that as an HR person she is moving forward to do the best during the current situation. Then I spoke about what is a leadership style. What changes you have in terms of managing team or being an HR person. And she talks about communication skills. She says that we have to be very good communicator with listening skills, because we need to really listen to people's problem, because the situation is not normal, and henceforth connecting one-to-one, managing a team, having a tasking skill is super important. She has to mentor the team, and of course she has to be very, very flexible in her mindset and as well as in handling situation. One learning she want to improve, of course that is the how to bring discipline being work from home. Today of course she cannot avoid 9 to 9 job, and post COVID she really want to bring a good quality time to the family. So what we see here is that we see that there are many pujas, there are many individuals in a very, very a similar situation, and of course in a new digital experience. I thought about how we can bring some of the HR element, because it is not that easy. There are no any written books today, and I thought there can be 6 simple I would say human relationship management aspect or a principle. Number one is the goal orientation, what you see in the screen, meaning that as a leader, as a manager, we need to really communicate the goal. We need to give a direction for an individual to move forward. The manager has to have a one-to-one connection, because it is super important that we need to be flexible and have an understanding how the team is doing. On the other side, we should not worry much on the HR, administrative, or people management stuff, because there are many tools, and the HR team across the world, and I'm sure in India also doing a fantastic job, because there are a lot of digital tools coming up there. I talked about learning. Employee development is one part where a engaged employee is learning by doing job. At the same time, if somebody has some little free time, this is the fantastic time period to develop a new skill. In fact, I have a friend from Bangalore, Siva, and he sent a list of many learning tools, and many of them are free as well for one to do a self-learning. I would like to say that safety, health, and well-being has come inside the boardroom today. Of course, profitability, we spoke about, cash, we spoke about, the cost, but you have seen that colleague has come in the board. And then, of course, there are many people like you and me working from, home, but we have to be very, very empathetic who is working in the industry today and supporting the essentials. And of course, we are very, very appreciative to them. Business partnership, of course, without aligning ourselves to business reasoning, it is not, not good in the current context. So I want to summarize that, it is very contextual in nature today, largely depend on an industry one belong to, because things are different industry to industry. I see that the IT guys primarily in the infrastructure domain are super busy, and probably the retail industry they are finding different way. Business continuity plan we spoke about, and of course we need to appreciate and respect the social norms. The social distance is a strategic move that we have to really support the good government initiative, and we all are practicing, and this is also bringing new habits to individuals. Work from home, I think going forward, employees will ask for it, and this is something new, which I personally, see. And when company comes back to normal state, I think there would be a talk around work from home as a tool. And of course, what is more important, that the leadership has to play a very, very big role. Common sense is very, very relevant today, and everybody has to, bring own personal reflection and see how we move forward, and that what I see as a growth mindset is very, very critical in nature. So what is the rule of the game? The social distance and virtual management are the rules of the game, and then you have to play better than anyone else. I think these two words I want to leave. One, social distance, we really need to practice on day-to-day life, definitely for near future, and we need to know and learn the virtual management in a much effective way. I love cricket. You have seen two pictures here. Probably today, is a time of test match. Of course, the 2020 is the rule of the cricket world, but probably today is also a good time for the test match, so that people know and how to play a stroke and so forth. So with that, I complete my short presentations, and I would be happy if there are certain questions that I can answer. Thank you, Manas.
Thank you, Pranab. That was very good. And we have some interesting HR-related questions coming in. So I'll read out a couple of them before we open up the entire forum to Ajay and Gauri also combined, to all three of you. So the first question is Dr. Jhansi Rani. Employee engagement is the bigger challenge what HR faced during this pandemic. Just one moment.
Yeah, I can read. What measures have to be taken by HR to meet this standard? So I think, see, I am an HR person. I'm working in Volvo, managing 7 countries, because my role is an Asia Pacific role. And one thing I always say, this is the time of management team. There is no manager, no CTO, no head sales of marketing. This is one team, management team, taking it together. There is a business continuity plan. Of course, HR has to take a lead in employee engagement, but it's a role of everybody. This is not a normal situation. But yes, HR has to be very, very proactive. We have to design a new interactive program. And today's, I think, virtual webinar is also something like that, and for that I was really interested to join. So I think today's call is a very good example of this question, Dr. Jhansi.
Maybe one more from Pankaj Mishra. It was a few minutes back. In the current VUCA world that we are living in, and once normalcy returns, what advice would you give us to sustain in the industry, because of the whole, just one moment, I lost it. Whole paradigm of working would change, maybe take away a lot of jobs as well.
You want me to answer, Manas?
Yep.
Okay, very good. I would say that government, I would say across the globe, are putting a lot of effort to retain the employment of citizens and employees, and every company has a similar mindset, because the focus is more on health and well-being, more than the profitability. What I personally see, definitely with the big companies, and there are small companies, they are really struggling. And at the same time, I would say that it is employees' responsibility also, to develop the new skills, still do a better job during the tough situation, and get ready for the, future, the new norm coming up. And we spoke about India has a fantastic opportunity. So I would say that, we have to be a little optimistic in nature. We have to, do whatever we can do using our, common sense, taking the example of, Pooja in my story, and then, and then I spoke about the learning journey. And I think God is also there to support us, and we should be able to manage it together. Thank you.
So yeah, thanks Pranab. And with that, possibly Ajay, you can also come in and pick up any of the questions that are coming in through the chat.
Sure, which one? You want me to address the VUCA one because it is going to increase actually. The situations, uncertainty will increase, but I think the smart organizations would be the one which will immediately attack the basics. And we see it happening in the entire BPO world, KPO world. There was a time when a customer would call, he will not be having 1 second to even listen, or the impatience level was very high because they want the things to be done now and immediate, and we all are also like that. But now with this situation coming in, actually what we are seeing is that the patience has increased. People do realize the problem at every end, and that is why I say that the human expectations actually do adjustments based on the climate they are, based on the environment they are, based on the situation we all are. We all have hundreds of resources available at hand. We won't panic. You put all of us in one room, all good. Put all of us in one room, there are 50% resources, we might even fight with each other or go to extremes. So the good organizations, after coming out of this COVID, of course, the financial muscle power is one thing. People who have organizations which have their rainy day kit to a substantial extent would obviously survive a longer duration. But much more than that, I don't think people will forget the goodness, the wellness, and the sympathy and empathy that an organization spreads towards its employee. I do see attrition rates going down in the organizations which take care of their employees in these tough times. And just follow the basics, just follow the basics. And for quite some time, organizations may not get into fancying customers with a lot of other things, but just the basics and necessities, and maybe the return or coming back to the world that we all were in might take 3 to 4 years in terms of competency of business and all that. Initially 2 years, it is more of a survival.
Thanks, Ajay. There is another question coming from Gaurish on what organizational changes employees can expect from management post-COVID. So some of it you have already mentioned in the last addressing the last question, but is there anything else anybody wants to add on top of what Ajay mentioned? Or Ajay, if you want to
I think
anything extra?
I want to say something on this because it's little closer to my heart. Is that hi Goris? It's a very interesting question, organizational change, and I think I personally don't see much structural change coming up. Once we move forward, but the change what will come is more on the skill part, meaning that there would be certain skill which will go to redundancy level, and there would be some skill which will be high in premium. Example, I say that probably a skill on sensor technology, the skill on security will take a bigger space. So I think that is one. The second is that the changes related to employee relation and the management, specifically people learning this virtual platform and the remote management and so forth. I think people will be little more open-minded, and probably the trust factor will come into the picture. The old traditional approach of everybody sitting together, having a daily morning meeting, having a one-to-one boss subordinate management meeting, I think those would be challenged because the people have exercised a easy way, and of course it is a very efficient way as well, I think. But yes, some company may go to structural change because it's all about money in the business, because if you don't have money you have to downsize and things like that. But I think as of now big organizations are really positive to come back very strongly.
Thanks, Pranab. Couple of questions in relation to the education sector. One is from Kumar N. asking about how the COVID-19 lockdown can impact the education sector. And the other question that came from, I'm just struggling to find it, just one moment. On how to, it is in relation to the story of Pooja, how to keep the students motivated. Yeah, Malavika Srivastava asking how to keep the students motivated, assuming Malavika is from the education sector. Anybody wants to take that?
Gauri can pick. Gauri has not spoken.
Hi guys.
Okay.
Specifically around keep. Go ahead. Go ahead, Pranab.
No, go ahead. Sorry. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
All right. Okay, so while it's not easy to keep the students motivated, unlike your employee force, the primary driver here could be largely around setting them expectations around what can be the benefits out of keeping the time engaged. Obviously, the best option, at least the one that works best for employees, is to see how we can lighten up some of these engagements. So I've observed some of the professors who recently made classroom sessions a lot more interactive through some teleconference models. If you continue to conduct a monologue session, it's not going to be easy to keep the students motivated during these crisis hours. It's going to only be treated as an holiday, and it's not going to be as easy as we look at delivery oriented employees in the structure. So that's at least my view on this. Pranab, maybe something from your direction.
Yeah, I am engaged with some of the MBA school because of my love towards the, competence development. I have three, angle to this question. Angle number one, the education, system or a college, whether it's a degree college or an MBA college, really have to develop the IT infrastructure. And I believe that a lot of, institute have already started building this, collaborative tools. Example, I know many of the institute started using Zoom, Office 365, and things like that. I think that's one space where we should not over depend on face-to-face, learning with the student and the professor. So that is one part, the infrastructure development, and Ajay is of course expert on that. That is one. Two, I think industry also has a role to play, because on one side, why everybody go for a learning process in a simple way to get a job. And today we see that it will affect the job market. Probably some companies have made an offer, and probably they are thinking to take the offer back. And I think we have to be very, very humble and see, the situation from a long-term and strategic perspective rather than a, short-term perspective. And we really have to play a role as an employer, in the society with right values and so forth. So we should, we should ensure that the young generation is really, coming forward. And I think we as an organizations has a role to play there. The third most important part is the student himself or herself. It's very important that we have to tell the student to independently go to a learning curve. There are many free learning sessions, and then of course they have a social network in they have a network in Facebook, and probably they should go and have some mentoring session. They should read books, they should read newspaper, and so forth. And of course, somebody has a good idea that he or she can start a startup also probably during this situation. So I think there are many stakeholders in this, but one thing we should help is the growth mindset by all these stakeholders. And it is a big problem in a big country like India with a population and so forth. But if everybody play a little role, I think things will be very good. Thank you.
There is one specific to question to Gauri, which is coming from Pankaj Mishra. Being in a leadership where you influence and impact a lot of lives, what has been your biggest leadership challenge so far?
Okay, so I just saw that question as well, Manas. So let me try and while we often talk about empathy as a very easy, free flowing word, it's not as easy as we see it, and putting ourselves into the shoes of someone else has not exactly the way it is portrayed. Good example is that when the whole crisis kick-started itself in China, and we were hearing everyday updates from our teams in China about how they are frozen towards one location in their homes and how things are getting crazy around them. It was just a news as yet, and when the reality kicked the whole world, we were able to see the factual differences versus how we were seeing it as a news, against how things are experienced by our own self. And also, I think Pankaj topped it up with one question saying that what is doing the right thing and what is doing the most human thing. Um, in this call, over all these disturbances, if we never heard a kid's voice or someone in the background, that's probably the right thing to do. But if you do hear such disturbances, accepting that as the moment's reality and operating with that comfort of knowing what is a disturbance in this situation is probably doing the human thing. So I would let that float. So for me, it's all about empathy. That's the biggest challenge in the current situation, at least. Knowing what your employees are going through, what your colleagues are going through, given the fact that some of them could be in a really tough situation more than what you're going through. So that's the biggest quotient for me, at least in this moment.
Right. Thanks, Gauri. Go on to another one. There is one interesting one from Shushant KS. In the current situation, the business dynamics already look changed. What impact do you foresee in the client-vendor equation relationship? Maybe Ajay, you can take that up.
No problem. I also like this question where something said doing the right thing or doing the human thing from Pankaj, I think. Hi, Pankaj, I don't know he's still there or not, but doing the human thing is always the right thing, Pankaj. A right thing may not be human thing, but a human thing will always be the right thing. And organizations and people have seen it, experienced it over so many years of industrialization and the job market when it came. So obviously, when it comes to leadership, that is something which I would say. Now, coming to the second point, what
Thank you, Ajay.
do you? Oh, good, you are here. And next thing is business dynamics already look change. Client vendor relationship, I think it will improve to a great extent, because some of the things where clients, and that is a normal perception that clients take vendors for granted, which is not true, but then if it is a perception, it is a perception. We have seen hundreds of vendors, call them business partners, call them eco partners, systems integrators, or whatever. I think they have stood very highly to the occasion. And I have not heard, I'm a part of the CIO club. We get news across 1200 CIOs. We are interacting on a regular basis. I think the vendor ecosystem has greatly supported across, I would not even say India, but across the world. And of course, in India, if we have seen offices running, businesses running, ecosystem running, people still getting everything of daily needs and all that, apart from obviously the doctors and security forces and the paramilitary police, local governance, all playing a huge role, absolutely commendable. But I would say that even IT sector people at the background to keep the engine running, keep the things happening so that it even works, has been a great thing. So client vendor equation relationship, surely 100%, I see a very, very good growth. I also see Sushant, receptivity of online qualification. Now that's a tricky one, because if you are the employer, you would not be satisfied with the theoretical qualifications of a candidate. You will surely look for the experience. You will surely look for how the person reacts on the ground. Otherwise, every librarian would be the CEO of the organization, but we know that doesn't happen. Online education, good. Perception will change. People will, I would say, not ignore it to the extent that have been ignoring so far. But I do not see that the value of your real life experience getting diminished and online education surpassing it to a great extent. It will improve, it will increase, obviously, but I don't think it will. It will be little higher receptive, but obviously not to the extent that it, say, topples down the real life experience of a competing candidate. I think I've spoken more. Manas, back to you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Ajay. That was good. There is another interesting question. This came to me from someone in a as a private message rather than a public message. The question is on the obvious question that is going on in everybody's mind, whether businesses around the world will pivot from China to India. Anybody
Yes. Yes.
who wants to take it?
Yes. The answer is yes. There is no doubt of it.
All right. So any rationale you would like to throw upon?
As I said just now, doing human thing is good thing. So if you, as a country, if we show to the world that we can manage, we can handle, and as well as support the other countries, Mr. Modi has supported not only the neighboring SAARC countries, nearby boundaries, but also far off countries.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a very good answer. I mean, India in many ways have shown a lot of sustainable behavior, which made the world sit back and kind of notice
We might not,
that
even US and so many countries which we might not be in the news or be even knowing of, but has job in supplying. And there is a time for everything. There is a time for everything. A lot of things were just for the pure economical reasons. If other countries were buying heavily from a competitive country because things were a little cheaper, but I'm sure the psychological reason as well as the governmental reason plus a little bit of a scare around, I see a very positive days for country right now.
all right, we'll take a last question, which is actually the last question in the chat box, and then we will stop the Q&A because we'll run out of time to keep a couple of minutes for closing comments. It came from Kumar in, because of lockdown, all are staying in home. So is it impact on mental stress on people? So Pranav, do you want to address that from the HR point of view?
No. Thank you. Yeah, I think question is a little contextual in nature because what I strongly believe is that everybody we all are different. Our family situation is different, our value systems are different, and so forth. And one thing, the positive part is that we as a family, we are living together. I think we need to appreciate and respect that. That is one. However, the mental stress is going up more, thinking that there would be a financial crisis coming up in terms of job loss or business loss and things like that. But I would say, going back to my cricket example, this is a time of a test match and not probably a 2020 to get an immediate result. And a little bit of patience, a little bit of self-confidence, growth mindset, and continuous learning will help everybody. But yes, I feel that every individual is a very strong individual, and people have to take care of themselves. And I'm sure God is with all of us, and we all will fight the COVID together as a one team globally. A lot of efforts are being put globally as well as in India as well, and it's just a momentary, and we should come back with a much more stronger force.
Excellent. Thanks, Pranab. So with that, we will close the Q&A, and I would invite Mr. Parashuraman. Mr. Parashuraman is the Senior Vice President of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce to make a few closing comments.
Hear me? Hello.
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Oh, good evening, Mr. Manas. Thank you so much. From Bangalore Chamber of Industries and Commerce, I take it a great honor and privilege to thank all the participating panelists, Mr. Ajay Bakshi, Mr. Gauri Shankar Paramasivam, and Mr. Pranab Chetia. And I think I've been just hearing this wonderful session, which is very relevant in today's context. In fact, somebody said necessity is the mother of invention. So I think once you are put in the water, naturally you start swimming. I think that's how the human beings react. I think this has been a very great time for all of us. Of course, the challenges are there, but I think one time in our life, in fact, all of us have never faced this kind of a situation. Therefore, many introspection, many reflections, and new skills, and a lot of new ideas, breakthroughs. I think this is what is actually happening. In fact, not only the IT organizations, service sectors, manufacturing companies. In fact, many manufacturing companies today are working from home, and we're able to develop a lot of new skill sets. What kind of challenges and how to minimize the manpower in the shop floor operations area. In fact, someone was asking the question, what is going to happen? Will we get the business from China? I think that is a very brilliant question. In fact, as you rightly said, the answer is yes. There are two reasons. One is, in fact, if you look at China, one is the aging population. I think if you look at India, our biggest advantage is the demographics of dividend because of the youth power. So we have one of the youngest population in the world, and typically an organization would mature from manufacturing to service sector as they age. But in India, it is happening in the reverse order. So China is obviously moving towards a service sector over a period of time. And India, in fact, we have a big service presence. But going forward, I think the equation is going to change. Because one is of the aging population, we're going to get a lot of new business to India from rest of the world, including China. So whether we like it or not, we are going to have a factory India and a market India, not only for our captive consumption, but also for the global market. Because India has got brilliant talents, the young population, the fantastic outlook of the people, somebody said, compared to the rest of the world. Of course, our challenges are there in terms of infrastructure competitiveness, logistics competitiveness. But all those things we can overcome with the Prime Minister's new mantra of Make in India. I would say the first phase is getting over, which is the kind of basics, back to basics. Next, we enter into the transformational phase, where I'm definitely expecting a lot of breakthroughs. Therefore, and COVID also has been contributing. In fact, if you look at the global voice, definitely, I think India is on the top, and people have given a very positive liking for India vis-a-vis the rest of the other competitors for obvious reasons. Therefore, definitely the future is going to be very bright. We are going to come back with unbelievable energy as a team. So that is the silver lining in the whole process. But nevertheless, each one of us are learning our own skills. In fact, many of us are learning the household skills also to support our families, which is also a great skill to realize. In the process, I think we are getting used to learning new things. In fact, I recollected the breakthroughs that happened. One of the breakthroughs in the United States of America, a beggar was walking on the streets, and he was trying to get some food out of sheer hunger. And a huge conference was going on. The topic of discussion was how to dispose the wafer cones, ice cream cups. And this guy, out of hunger, he said, I can eat it. That's how the breakthrough happened. And today we have the wafer cones. So I think this is a huge opportunity for all of us. And I heard brilliant viewpoints today from all the three speakers. And Pooja's example is amazing. I'm sure that many pujas are there all around the world. And we are also seeing a lot of new pujas getting created. So thank you so much for this wonderful session. And let us keep connected. And let us try to leverage this time for a better purpose and a meaningful existence. Thank you so much, all of you, and God bless.
Thank you, Parishrama sir. Thank you for your kind words. Very insightful. And I forgot to mention Mr. Parashuraman, apart from being the Senior Vice President of Bangalore Chamber of Industry and Commerce, he is a Managing Director at Toyota Industries in India, and himself
the
managing
Deputy Managing Director and President of Toyota Industries Engines.
Yes, and
Yeah,
himself managing a very large workforce. So thank you, sir. So with
My
that,
pleasure. Thanks a lot.
We would like to conclude the session by thanking all the speakers, audiences. It is very heartening to see so many of you joined in. About 100 odd audience we have attended this webinar of this evening.
I think all of you deserve a big hand of applause. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I think all the team. Thank you so much. Let us clap.
Thank you, Manas. Thank you, Mr. Purushottam.
And I would like to thank all the office bearers and Prithvi and Rupa, and special mention for Richa Sanna, who is the co-chair of the ICT committee, because the conceptualization of today's webinar came from her, and she was the strength.
Thanks, Richa. Thank you. Very well done. Thanks a lot.
Solo strength behind making this webinar happen. Thanks, Richa.
Great job,
Pleasure.
Manas, for you too also. You did a wonderful job, Manas. Thanks to you also.
Yes, yes. You deserve a big round of applause. Thank you.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Manas. Thanks, Richa, and thanks, Bakshi and Pranab.
Thanks, ladies and gentlemen. Thoroughly enjoyed. Thank you so much. God bless. Have a great day.
See you all. Stay safe. Bye.
Good evening
Stay
to you
safe.
all.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. It was a wonderful and a
Thank you,
thought-provoking session.
everybody. Thank you.